Well, welcome to In a Crisis Family Matters. I'm Andrew Kite, and I'm delighted to be here with Anna Shapiro, who's the Artistic Director of Steppenwolf Theatre and a Tony Award-winning director, and David Schmitz, the Executive Director of Steppenwolf Theatre. And I've been involved with Steppenwolf for almost 20 years. And what's really important to me about Steppenwolf is the artistic contribution it makes to the Chicago community and Chicago culture. And so I thought it was really important in this time of need to talk about those people that are really deeply affected by this. So welcome, Anna and David.
Thanks.
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
I just wanted to start with, how are you guys doing? How are you holding up through all this?
I think we're pretty good. I mean, David and I are in kind of constant contact, both because of the theater, and we both are parents of young children. And so we kind of meet at all places that are important right now for both of us.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
I would just, I think we're all trying to figure out how to exist inside of this claustrophobic world of being confined to our homes, and, figuring out how to run a theater company that's all about in-person connection through Zoom calls is pretty challenging, but we're making it through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're healthy. That's the most important thing.
Right.
Yes. I mean, being blessed with health and the luxury of being at home, I think, is not to be overlooked, right?
That's right, yeah.
So while many people who are listening to this might already know Steppenwolf, I thought maybe if you guys could introduce Steppenwolf a little bit and talk about what brought you to Steppenwolf and what really do you think is special about Steppenwolf?
Sure. I'll start that question. Steppenwolf is a theater company that is the longest standing ensemble-based theater company in the country. And we've been going for about 45 years. We are about, how many are we strong now, David, in the ensemble?
55.
So there's 55 actors, directors, and playwrights in the ensemble. We are located in Chicago. We have a beautiful theater on North and Halsted, and we've been there for a long time. And we are a Chicago theater company. And Steppenwolf has inspired so many of the small Chicago companies and the medium-sized Chicago companies. We really are the place that people look to in the city and nationally as a model for creating work together. I grew up in Evanston, and my parents were big theater people, so I've been going to Steppenwolf since I was probably too young to be going to Steppenwolf. But so this is why for us right now, we make our bones with group activity. There's a lot of theaters that you can do plays that have 2 or 3 people in it, and that's fine, but that's not what we're known for. We're known for this collision of human bodies and human experience. And so we're really feeling this right now. We're feeling the lack of each other,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was struck by something on the website that said, we're always stronger when we act together, which I think is a really powerful statement in a time like this. So David, what do you see as what makes Steppenwolf special in the ensemble special?
Well, to add on to what Anna said, I think it's you just maybe useful to set the frame a little bit, right? So so this ensemble of 55 actors, directors, and playwrights creates usually 6 to 7 main series plays a year. We also do 2 plays for teenagers every year as a part of our Steppenwolf for Young Adults program, which is part of our programming for young people that we banner under Steppenwolf Education. We serve about 20,000 young people every year, mostly teens. Our programming is mainly teen focused. And so, on top of the 175,000 or so audience members we serve in our main series programs, we also are really deeply missing our ability to connect with young people. We were in the midst of a sold-out production of I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, which is a book by a poet and novelist, Erica Sanchez. And we were 1 week into a 4-week completely sold out run when things got shut down. So we're really missing that. missing that and trying to, reach out to those teen audiences in the best way we can right now, which we can talk about in a bit. But
yeah, it's probably a part of Steppenwolf that people don't really know is how you're almost kind of an adjunct theater department for the school system here in Chicago, and feeding culture through the young students. We see the plays, but we often don't see what's happening behind the scenes there. So
yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, we spend a lot of time in classrooms. Our teaching artists are, in CPS classrooms working with kids. I mean, I think, the result of the disinvestment in arts education across our country has resulted actually in nearly all public school programs really relying on nonprofit theaters and arts organizations to be the arts, curriculum in their school. So we try to be a part of that, and a part of a a vital community of arts organizations in Chicago serving CPS.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, last week I talked to a Grammy-nominated musician whose all of his gigs have been canceled. We determined that musicians and artists are really the original gig economy.
Yeah.
I was curious, how is this crisis impacting the folks at Steppenwolf, both on stage and behind the scenes?
Well, I mean, there's the simple practical issue that you're talking about, which is that we make what we make in communion with other people. We can't even rehearse to make it without being in rooms with other people. Everything we do is about the collision of human beings. So we can't do it. I think that it's important to really note that we can't do it, that there is something that is missing in all of our lives when you can't make or attend a live theatrical event. You can't do it. I'm sure there are very few times in history where that's even happened before, as theater has been, so spinal to the human experience and our development as a species. So what you do then, once you realize, look, you can't do it, is you do two things. First, you try to figure out when the heck you're going to get to do it next. And you do everything you can to be ready the minute the flag drops. You want everyone working safely and quickly to get back. So that's what we spend a lot of time doing, is kind of scheming out what will we do when the flag drops, and what will it look like when the flag drops, and will the flag drop like this, or will the flag drop, And then the second thing you do is you ask yourself, what is the feeling that we are all missing out on that theater gives us? What's the feeling? And when you interrogate the feeling, you then can start to figure out if there's any other way to help remind people of the feeling, because you can't replicate the feeling. That's not going to happen on a Zoom of anything. Not possible. So you try to figure out how to evoke the meaning, recall the meaning, and you sit it up in the middle of the night and you go, that would evoke the feeling. That would remind people of the feeling. And that practice is something I think that later, when we emerge from this, we're going to see as being incredibly valuable for us as art makers and human beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would just, I think that's exactly right. And I think, sort of to your question, Andrew, there's so many theater makers are just unemployed, right? I mean, there's so many. We were in rehearsal for a show. We were 1 week into rehearsal. We had to, shut that show down. Those actors went from having 10 weeks of employment, which for them includes 10 weeks of contribution to their pension fund and 10 weeks of contribution to their health fund. And, the actors get health insurance by having contract weeks, right? So we literally went from, them thinking they had 10 contract weeks to nothing. I mean, it evaporated. We paid them out 3 weeks, which was, much more generous than what was required by the union. But, they're unemployed. And worse, it's, as you say, artists are the original gig economy. I think that's 100% true. But, anyone that's worked in a gig, in a gig situation understands, like, what you're doing is you're piecing together gig after gig after gig. And if you're working at the level of our artists are working, for the most part, they're hopefully working 6 to 12 months out, right? They're booking themselves and they're all doing nothing right
so you
now.
can't just push the play back 3 months because they've got commitments to other things that happen.
Well, and, in our case, I mean, honestly, 3 months, I think, what we're all trying to figure out is, what is that time frame that we can do that? And honestly, at this point, we don't anticipate performing on stage until next fall. I don't think it's likely. Certainly not in Chicago. I don't think it's likely in the rest of the country. And though there is some language coming out of like Broadway that maybe they're talking about June, they're not talking about June. It's going to be the fall. So, at that point we had already announced next season. So there wasn't, there's no way to take the show that we were doing and kick it 3 months into the next season. We're already booked through August of 21. Mm-hmm. So now those things are still getting moved into 21, 22. And we did run into some issues as we were delaying. There was one show that we were trying to delay, and it did come up to the question of artist availability kind of mashing with our calendar, and just in the end we just couldn't make those things work. But I think the bigger issue for those artists is just the floor has come out. There's nothing underneath them anymore, right? There's no, a lot of these folks, even the most successful ones will tell you that their biggest fear is that they'll be waiting tables tomorrow, but they're also ready to be waiting tables tomorrow, and they can't even do that, right?
That's right.
So how do you think this will change the face of theater moving forward?
That's such a good question. I think it's funny, but I've been thinking a lot about this. I've been thinking about what's important to people and how important it is to people. I have a series of things I do in my life, right? And if I were to be forced to put them into a kind of hierarchy of importance, I think I'd probably be surprised. What are the things that I miss? In fact, we've learned a lot, right, from this. There's so many things that I used to just do all the time that I now don't do at all. And there are things I never had the chance to do that I do now every single day. I think it's going to depend on how many people missed it. And I don't think that's a kind of a calculable thing right now. But I think in some way, the longer it goes on, the clearer that's going to become. And what we're seeing from the support we're getting is pretty positive in terms of where it sits in people, where theater sits in people's lives. And also, frankly, I don't think, every way you see theater or participate in theater is an affinity group, right? My mother could not care less about Broadway plays. I mean, she kind of has to go because I do them. She likes edgier things. When when we're in New York, she's downtown seeing plays while I'm doing plays in Midtown, right? So she's not going to be so anxious to get back to Broadway. But I guarantee you, the first time she's allowed to leave her house, she will walk into a small theater. That will be where she will go, because that's who she is. And I think what you're finding is that people are losing their external identifiers. We're all losing our identities because we're not really a spiritually centered culture, right? We're an exterior. We center on the exterior self, not the interior. So all of these things we've all spent so much time accumulating in our identity, they're not available to us anymore.
Right.
And we have to see what theater is to people, and that will help theater makers. So I don't think we'll be the same, but I don't think it's that we won't be the same because suddenly our numbers will be way down. Theater's been dying since it was born. There have been plagues. Like, have there been, Shake Shacks and plagues? No. Have there been basketball games and plagues? No. But there have been plays and plagues. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have a history on our side, but I hope what it will do is help programmers get a different sense or a truer sense of the function of that event in people's lives.
You know, a lot of people are at home, they're stuck. Maybe they have a chance to work, maybe they're homeschooling, but many of them are asking, how do we make a difference in the midst of this? So how can people help the theater community and ensure that we have this kind of lifeblood of meaning making and our culture when we come out of this?
You know, I think that first of all, you have to be really mindful of what the real problems are and where, you know, theater's only going to be as okay as the community is, right? We are dependent on a healthy community. We're dependent on a courageous community. We're dependent on an adventurous community. So there's two ways you help theater happen, or help guarantee that it's going to happen again. You look to your community and its health and its safety first, which we should all be doing. That is everyone's primary job. That's a hard message to send to, you know, I teach at Northwestern, I teach graduate theater makers, and their question, bless their hearts, is like, how am I going to have, like, how do I get in the door at a time like this? It's like, you don't get in the door at a time like this. You go to the blood bank at a time like this. You go help people at a time like this. You take care of yourself at a time like this. So first and foremost, we look at our community, even as we are trying to figure out the best way for us to come back strong. David and his team look at it in a communal way. We don't look at it at the expense of other companies. We're not competitive for dollars in that way. We're working together as a theater community to come back together. So that's the first thing we all have to do, is look at our community. And the second thing you need to do is you just plainly and simply, if you can and if you care, you just need to invest in the future. You need to say, I know we'll be back. I know you'll be back. And actually, I care that my life includes Steppenwolf Theater Company. I've had friends who I always offer free tickets to in times of, you know, and I've gotten text, I just bought a membership for the first time. We'll be back. I just bought a membership. I just bought a membership. They see that as their lifeline out. So I think it's investing in our future. And the way you do that is if you had tickets to a theater, not just Steppenwolf, don't ask for a refund. Donate, you know, if you can. And if you can subscribe to the theaters who have subscriptions, get a membership for the theaters who have membership, get one. Get one for everyone that you know. You know, there's a spirit of that. Like there is no doubt Christmas, Hanukkah just got a lot easier for me and Jan, because all we're getting, everybody, is memberships to stuff. Not just Steppenwolf. We're going to buy memberships for people to everything we care about. Because for people who can't give a ton, and we can't give a ton, we want to invest in those places and in the lives of the people who want to continue to be enhanced by those places.
Well, thank you guys both for your time and for keeping the arts and the passion for arts alive in Chicago and in our nation. And I hope you guys all stay safe, and thanks again for your time.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Thanks for bringing us together.